Hello there. Hobbies. We all have them, except some of us don't. It's kind of in the name. Now, I am someone who does not have a lot of hobbies. However, I'm also a notorious fucking liar. And apparently I do. So we're gonna be going over those today. Hobbies. Get out of my way. Now, if asked directly, I would say no, I don't have a lot of hobbies. However, I do have a lot of things that I do. I don't know if I would call them hobbies, but they're certainly activities, and I've picked up a lot of them over the last year. So what's the only thing I can do with that, of course? Turn it into content, baby. Also, I do not think that I have that much free time. However, going over all of this, apparently I do have free time. I'm just horrible at managing it. So anyway, here are all of the ways that I've wasted my time, energy, and money over the past year. First up, crocheting. I've wanted to learn how to crochet for years, but I haven't gotten around to it. I started off 2024 strong by learning how to crochet, and let me tell you, it's a lot harder than the girlies make it seem. Crochet is like the freeform jazz of the crafting world. To anyone outside of it, it just kind of looks like garbled nonsense. But if you understand what's going on, you realize how complex it is. Truly, crochet, like, you just start making things. Like, you just build off of nothing. It's like freestanding arches. Like, I don't know how that shit is staying in place. Now, at the beginning of the year, I took an actual, like, legitimate learn how to crochet class from a local yarn store. The instructor was wonderful, taught us everything we need to know for the basics, and let me tell you, I still have no idea what I'm fucking doing. I've spent months crocheting, and I don't know if I'm doing it right. But the thing about crochet is it doesn't really matter. Like, if you're not a professional, it'll still look fine because no one else will know the difference. The great thing about crochet is that all of these things, they look really nice. You know, you can give them away as gifts. And if you're like me, you love making things, but hate looking at the things that you make. So you can just give them away and then you never have to see them again. I have only made 2 crochet projects so far. I made these little lavender crochet flowers. They're great, they're beautiful. Immediately gave them away because I don't want to look at them. I made like 2 of them, you know, easy peasy. After that, I made just a full-size blanket. Moderation is not my strong suit. I went from teeny tiny little project to full ham. I made an entire blanket within the span of like 6 months. It would have taken a lot less time, except once again, I didn't know what I was doing, and I probably had to rip out at least a third of the blanket over the course of the entire project and just recrochet it. That being said, Tony from TLC Yarn Crafts is a god. She is like the lord and savior of the crochet world, okay? Now, if you're thinking about crocheting for yourself, here's something you might want to consider. One positive is that it's great if you're just a chronic worker and or have ADHD. I am someone who I have to be doing something at all times. I can't just like sit and enjoy something. I have to be working constantly. So for me, this was a great thing that I could do while I was like watching TV. If you want to know how much soccer I watch in the span of 6 months, it's 1 blanket's worth. However, the thing about crochet is that unless you really know what you're doing, it's not at all relaxing. People make it seem like it's like such a chill little activity. You just, you know, like snuggle down and you crochet and you have some tea. No, again, this is like intricate math. You gotta be counting shit. Once again, I had to rip out like a third of the blanket just because I either wasn't paying attention or messed up something a little bit ago and then had to destroy the entire thing. I finished this blanket in like July and I immediately got rid of it, and then I have not crocheted anything since then. However, I do have a crochet project in mind. I am going to sit down soon and make some little like Winnie the Pooh stuffed animals for some child associates of mine. I feel like that was a better way to say that. I know some children. I was planning on making them these for the holidays, and then I didn't. So birthdays it is. Anyway, I'm saying this publicly so that I can shame myself into finally making them and stop neglecting these children. These are not my children, by the way. I do not have children. I actively dislike children. Anyway, crochet, give it a solid 6 out of 10. Next up, soccer! Or if you're from anywhere other than the US, Japan, Canada, or Australia, I believe. It's called football. Why? Because you play it with your feet. It makes much more sense. I know the whole history of it. I don't have time to get into that right now, okay? Anyway, I love soccer. I love just little kickies. Truly, Football is life. My man Danny knows what's up. But I played soccer like all throughout growing up. I was like, I don't want to join a rec league. That takes too much effort. And then I watched Bend It Like Beckham last year and was immediately like, I should join a soccer team. The gays get you every single time. Let me tell you, this was a great decision. I'm currently on 2 different teams and it's just so much fun. It really is something that's just great if you're like me and you just have a hyperactive dog brain. If you see an open field, you want to run around in it, chase people down, and just go after balls. Don't take that out of context. And the other thing is, as a chronic introvert like the rest of us on the internet, socialization is a thing that is in fact good for you. I know you hate to hear it, but it's true. Getting out and talking to people is in fact very good for you, and joining a sports team is a great way to do it. Now, for me, the biggest pro about joining my co-ed soccer teams is the women. Every single lady that are on these teams are just like the coolest person I've met in my life. They're so rad, they're so chill, everyone's like super nice to each other, and a lot of them are moms, so they'll just like show up, kick ass for like a half an hour, and then be like, I gotta head to my kid's game, like see you guys later. And they just peace out. It's great. They will just tell you everything that happens after childbirth, and it's very funny and also horrifying. Now, the cons are the men. No further explanation needed. I will say that like most of the men that are on these teams are pretty chill. Now, some of the men on these teams, this is their fucking life. Like they treat these games like it's a life or death situation, like they're playing in the fucking World Cup. It's not. It's a Tuesday night adult rec league. There's no need to get multiple red cards, okay? Anyway, if soccer is your sport, if any sport is your sport, go out and find a rec league to join. Even if like you're new to sports, like there are tons of leagues where you can go with no experience needed. There are like kickball leagues, there's like softball and baseball leagues, dodgeball. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I'd recently heard about there being like a hockey team in my area. I want to do that. I don't know anything about hockey, but like I want to live out the dreams of that one Disney movie where the girl wants to be a figure skater and they put her on a nice hockey team instead, all right? I want that to be me. Anyway, soccer leagues, rec leagues, 10 out of 10. Go give them a try. They're very fun. Next up, what we're all here for, YouTube. Now, about 10 months ago to be exact, I just had a little mental lapse and decided to make a YouTube video for funsies. And let me tell you, this was probably like the stupidest thing I've ever done. Not making the video. Well, yes, making the video. The entire concept was ridiculous and it was so much fun. Look, you don't have to watch the video if you don't want to, but it is very funny. I got to see an early screening for Dune 2, and so, of course, I was like, I have to go dressed as a worm. That's the only logical plan of action. I made a giant worm costume within, like, 36 hours about, and I wore it to the theater, and no one said a single fucking thing about it the entire time. It was so funny. I walked into a fully booked theater dressed as a giant worm, and no one said a goddamn thing. I got a few stares, one guy that just went, and that was it. Now, the best thing about YouTube is it's just like a very silly, goofy, fun time. I'm sure some people take this seriously. I don't. I'm sure you can tell. It really has just become a way for me to just yap endlessly about stupid things that no one cares about and then never think about them again. I am so shocked that people watch this because I would not watch this. Who would want to sit through this? I don't know. Apparently some of you. I appreciate you being here, but like reevaluate your life choices. Making YouTube videos really has just become a great outlet for all of my little comedic bits that I think of. I have for years had notes on my phone with just like lists and lists of funny gags that I think someone should make at some point, and then they just sit there and do nothing. Turns out I'm the person to make them, and I'm making them now. One pro about making YouTube videos is like you do whatever you want. Really, like there are no rules. If you're interested in cooking, you can make cooking videos. If you're interested in whatever the fuck this is, you can do this too. Like post that shit on there. If no one watches it, that's fine. And if people watch it, then people like your stuff, you know? Now, the one downside of this is that inevitably, with making these videos and editing them, you will have to look at and hear yourself constantly. That's my personal hell. I don't know if this is clear, but I actively hate being on camera, which is what I'm doing right now. Now, besides that, this literally will take up all of your free time and more. Now, each and every one of these videos takes so long to make, like an unbelievable amount of time to make them. This PowerPoint presentation took me about like 5 hours to make. 90% of the work that goes on here is done between the hours of like 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. I'm sure if you're better at time management or don't yap as much, this will not be an issue. But for me, it's a big issue. However, I very much do enjoy doing this. If I didn't enjoy it, I wouldn't do it. I say, having a bad time. Overall, YouTube, I'd give it a solid 9 out of 10. If you've ever thought about making YouTube videos before, I truly cannot recommend it enough. It's very fun. You can do whatever you want. And, you know, you can interact with some people who share the same ideas as you. As someone who started this truly believing no one would watch it, I am continuously shocked every single time someone watches a video. If you're here, like, you've seen this video, thank you very much for watching it. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't enjoy it, I know because you've told me so. Anyway, I've read like every single comment left on these videos. I try to respond to most of them, but I very much appreciate you. Thank you for giving me your time. I'm sorry that I take advantage of it so much, but really, I just talk a lot. It's not intentional. Anyway, moving on. Next up, romantasy books, or as I like to call them, fairy porn. Now, stick with me on this one. I am using the term romantasy very loosely. Now, this is a genre of books that I did not think I'd ever like because I don't like romance books. However, as I started reading these, again, using the definition very loosely, these books are kind of fire. A lot of these books very genuinely have a wonderful plot, but like since they're given like the label as like a romance book or a romance subplot, people don't like them because they associate that with women. And what do we hate? Women! Now, once I started reading these books, I inevitably started just like word vomiting on people that I know about them unwillingly. And turns out a lot more people like them than you would think. It's one of those things where a lot of people read them, but people don't talk about them that much. Another thing great about YouTube is that I can constantly be watched by my neighbors outside. I don't like that. I started yapping at friends about these books, and turns out some of them like the same books or have their own romantasy recommendations for me. Even during one of the soccer games I was at, 2 people on the other team on the sidelines started talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I was like, shit, I love those books. And we had a great little conversation while I wasn't paying attention to playing the game. This isn't the case for every single book, but with all the ones I'm reading, it is quite easy to find like good queer representation if that's something you're interested in. One of the pros for these is fantasy. Look, fantasy's fucking rad. It's so cool. You can build your own little world. However, one thing that must be pointed out about the romantasy books is just like a litany of bad tropes, basically just like little ideas that they have to stick to, like the enemies to lovers or like the damsel being rescued, that sort of thing. Not all of them are bad, but some of them are just fucking infuriating. I'm looking at you, A Court of Thorns and Roses. That one chapter just makes me so mad. Anyway, besides that, stray dicks. What do I mean by that? Is like, look, these books are about romance. A lot of them have sex scenes. A lot of these sex scenes involve penises, and the way they're described are just truly awful. You're just reading, having a good time, and they just start like chucking in penises, and suddenly I'm having a much less good time. Who knows when they'll show up or where or for how long, but like y'all always got to be vigilant. Anyway, overall, I would say this gets like a solid 8 out of 10. Everything that I've read, I've had a good time with, but I feel like there's also probably a lot of garbage out there. So it's just kind of like picking out like the good ones in the bunch, you know? Now, If you are interested in some fantasy books with like some romance subplots, I've got some good recommendations for you. First up, Just Stab Me Now. Now, this book is written by Jill Barup. If you don't know her, she's a YouTuber. She makes like great fight analysis videos and also like reviews armor in video games and media. Very fun. Go check out her videos. She wrote this book and I read it and I loved it. Now, this book kind of is a fantasy book and kind of isn't a fantasy book. It follows two storylines. One storyline is about an author trying to write a romantasy novel, and the other plot line is about like the characters of that novel. And the author, like, it's her first book in the genre and she doesn't really know what she's doing, and she just relies heavily on the tropes that we talked about. And so she's just like trying to like squeeze every single one in there to try to make this book a success. And it constantly cuts between like the author and her characters. She'll do like little like intermissions where she'll like step into the story. She'll like stop a scene and she'll like walk up to like the male protagonist and be like, oh, like you know, you have to show her that you're the big strong male. Like you have to overpower her, like grab her. And the character is like, why would I do that? He's like, why would I grab her? It's like, that's so inappropriate. Now, as for the Horn Dog Scale up here, is a very like light romance book. It's very like feel good. It has a little fluff in there. It gets a solid like 0 on the Horn Dog Scale. This is a book that anyone could read. Like all ages are welcome here. Next up, we have the Cruel Prince series. I have some fucking thoughts on these books. First of all, I love them. Second of all, nowhere in my mind are these romance novels. I know other people say that they are. I think we're reading two separate books because this is a book series about like a political coup, and the main character just happens to be a girl who may or may not kiss someone at some point. I don't know what you guys are seeing in this. However, it's a very good series. You should check it out. There may or may not be a little bit of smooching and a little bit of like, you know, like precarious situations, but besides that, there's nothing. It's not a romance series. Next up, we have Malice. I might have read this last year, but I'm going to include it anyway. This is essentially like a retelling of the Snow White story, but from like Maleficent's point of view. In this, her name is Alice. It's very, very good, and it's also very, very gay. This one, again, very light on any like spicy scenes. There is a lot of yearning, you know, we love a good yearning. Anyway, I would say that this gets like a solid 2. Next up, we have, of course, the ACOTAR series. I have read Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, and Wings and Ruins. It's about chosen girl Feyre gets kidnapped into the fairy realm and then has to stay there. A lot goes on. I don't have time to get into it. I've already talked about this book for far too long. So as for the first one, A Court of Thorns and Roses, I'd give this a solid like 3 on the Horn Dog Scale. This book had far less porn in it than I was expecting. I was pleasantly surprised when there was only like one really like sex scene in it. There's also another scene that like is kind of horny, but just infuriates me that I've already ranted about for far too long. Besides that one chapter, it's pretty good. Anyway, 3 on the Horn Dog Scale. Next up, A Court of Mist and Fury. This book is the sequel and in every way, shape, and form far superior than A Court of Thorns and Roses. It's like if someone took the first book and then made their own fan fiction about it that like took the entire plot, threw it out the window, and then made it better. Also, the horniness just like significantly goes up. Like literally 20 pages in, they're just going full ham. Now, I will say about this one, for most of the book, there is not a lot of like saucy scenes or whatever. It's mostly just someone having the worst time of their life. But then whenever they do have those spice scenes, they really go hard on them, you know? There's also a lot of yearning involved. That gets a solid like 8.5. Finally, Wings and Ruin. I want to give this book like an 8 out of 10. I think it does have less smut scenes in it than in Mist and Fury. However, I am also remembering a scene in a library of something that should not be done in a library, so it gets an 8. Now, for the final 2 books in the series, Frost and Starlight, Silver Flames, I have yet to read them. I will get around to it, but for those are yet to be determined. Now, finally, we have The Prince's Poison Vow. This is a book that a friend recommended to me like 8 months ago, and I didn't read it. This also doesn't really count as 2024. I started it on January 1st. It's now January 4th, and I've read like 500 pages of it, and I barely know how to read, this book is so fucking good. I cannot recommend this book enough. I don't know how to describe it without saying it's like Game of Thrones, but it kind of is like Game of Thrones. If you like Game of Thrones, check this book out. It's rad. Also, a hell of a lot gayer. My friend recommended this book to me by saying, I think you'd like it, it's really gay, and I said, say no more, I'm in. Now, this is a book that's about like a continent and all of like the warring countries on that continent, and the whole thing starts off, there's a coup, and the queen of that country is killed, and all 3 of her kids are like smuggled out by different groups. The oldest daughter is like kidnapped / taken as a ward by the people who committed the coup. And now she's used as kind of like a puppet by them to like retaking over the other throne that she left behind. The middle son, everyone just thinks he's dead, and he is taken to like this group called the Wardens, who are kind of like zombie hunters. There's also zombies in this book. It's not at all like White Walkers, but it is exactly like the White Walkers, and he's part of the Night's Watch. Anyway, everyone thinks that he died in the fire. And then lastly, the youngest daughter, no one even knows that she existed. The day before the coup took place, the queen had given birth, but like they didn't tell anyone about it. So everyone just assumes that like the baby died with the queen, but she didn't, and she's like taken and hidden with this other family as their ward, and then a child who helped smuggle her out of the country is given to another country as their ward. 20 years later, all of them just like reconvening back together. It's extremely interesting. Now, I was not told anything about this book going in, and I was unprepared for the level of just pornography that was in it. This gets a solid 10 out of 10. Look, they just go like full hog. Don't say that. I was like really unprepared for it, but since it happens literally all the time, I've gotten used to it, and I'm like fully committed to it. Like every single chapter, they switch between characters, and at this point in the book, I'm like, get back to Soren. I want to see him get cut that out. I can't say that. Every single like smut scene that's in there is between a queer couple. If that can entice you at all, it's very good. It's very, 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 very good. Like, I'm gonna finish this book today. I'll let you know how it goes.
6 hours later.
Next up, kind of going off of the book theme, we have webcomics. The best thing about webcomics is that it's like books, but easier. They've got more pictures, which makes my brain happy. Look, like, we'll get to that later. Just stick with me on this one, okay? The great thing about webcomics is that they're super, like, engaging without the time commitment it takes to read an entire book series. As someone who's very bad at reading, it takes a very long time to do. However, with webcomics, you can breeze through years and years of hard work in like a matter of a few hours. Now, one of the pros about webcomics is that you can support small artists. Almost all of these are like self-published works. You can tell how much like time and effort and care go into them. And it's always good to support like small independent artists whenever possible. The con about this is that Webtoons is just a monopoly hellscape. Webtoons, if you don't know, is like the big app big app. It's the big app for like webcomics. It's what all of these are essentially published on. From what I've heard from authors, they just don't pay their artists very well and will also like own the rights to your stories, which I don't like. That seems bad. But unfortunately, a lot of these are like exclusive on there, so there's not much you can do about that. But also, you know, support these people independently whenever possible. Now, if you're looking for some recommendations to get started, I've got some ideas for you. First off, Lore Olympus. Look, I know y'all don't like Lore Olympus. You've told me you don't like Lore Olympus. I don't care, okay? I like it. When I read this, I was stuck on a train for 16 hours. I read the first chapter and I thought, wow, that's a lot different than I thought it was gonna be. I don't know if I like this. And then I read the next one and I thought, this is okay. I'm still not sure whether or not I like it. And then once again, I was stuck there for 16 hours. So I read the entire thing. And like, I gotta admit, I do like it. Basically, it's Hades and Persephone. People have thoughts about it because people have very, very strong opinions on Greek mythology. There are some things in the story that I disagree with and don't like. However, it is just for entertainment value, and I do have to say it is very entertaining. Hermes is in it, and he's such a little guy, and I love him. Also, I'm gonna get people riled up again. I feel like a lot of the dislike for this is how they portray Apollo, because Apollo has just a fucking rabid fan base. Y'all are so dedicated, but my God, if you insult that man, you will have an army at your throat. And this book does not portray him well, and I believe that's why people don't like it. Also, I understand other reasons why people don't like it. Now, even if you don't like Lore Olympus, don't discount all of these other stories just because I'm also recommending that. Like, this has nothing to do with the rest of these, okay? Next up, we have Covenant 13. Y'all know Neil. Neil's the fucking best. This is her webcomic. It is so good. It's a fantasy story. It's essentially about this man who's like the last of his bloodline, and he's like taking down this like church/cult. Everything is like so dynamic and beautiful, and there's so many action sequences, and they're so well done. Just read the intro to this and tell me you don't love it. This man walks into a church. He sees abuse of power taking place. He immediately cons the church and then goes up to a guard and starts flirting with him. Like, he's the perfect man. Also, like, he's just beautiful, and Neil's art is beautiful. All right, next up, we have Alice's 500. Now, this actually, one day on YouTube, I just got, like, recommended on my feed a little animatic, and it was absolutely gorgeous, and it turns out it's for this story that's about our main character, Marks, and he's just a guy who is having like just the worst time in life. He's very miserable. He's not having a good time. And then he gets abducted by aliens and just goes on adventures with them. It's like a found family sort of situation. There's like the main plot storyline, and then there's also like another whole section of just like one-off mini comics of their day-to-day lives aboard the ship, and they're so entertaining. They're such cute little guys. I love them. Go read this and then come back to me and talk about it, because I want to talk to someone about this. It's so good. Last off, we have Cast Off. Now, Cast Off is another fantasy series about this little guy named Vector. He is mistakenly kidnapped by a bounty hunter and then has to make his way home. The author of this is Starfish Face on YouTube. She makes great videos about like doing all the art for this, about like writing stuff, about D&D. Also, if you're just looking for other webcomic recommendations, at the end of her videos, she recommends other webcomics for you, and so many of them sound so interesting, and I've saved them all, and I'll get to those in the future. But for right now, these are like the main ones that I've read, and I very much do recommend all of them. Again, don't take Lore Olympus being in there as a bad sign, okay? You can just forget that one and focus on the other three. They are very, very good. Anyway, overall, I would say webcomics, a solid 9 out of 10. Now, going off of webcomics, we have boxing. What a transition. Look, boxing is just so much fun. Combat sports are so much fun. I have always wanted to do them, and I've finally gotten around to it, and I love it. I can absolutely see why people start boxing and then it becomes their entire personality, because that's pretty much what's happening with me. Also, like, it is a very intimidating place to be. I get that, but after going there, like, the gym that I'm at is super fucking chill. I have no idea what I'm doing and constantly look like an idiot, but everyone's so nice. Like, don't get me wrong, it is like 95% like straight men in there. But like, they're all very chill. It is a lot harder than you think. If you watch people box and you're like, I could do that, think again. It is inevitable that you will look stupid. The walls are covered in mirrors, and I have to look at myself, and I look like a baby giraffe on ice, all right? It's not my fault that I'm built like a praying mantis, but I've never seen limbs flail more. Also, another thing to note is, like, especially if you're new there will be children who are there that are way better than you. You just have to accept that. Some of these kids are fucking wild. I truly do believe that, like, everyone should know some form of self-defense. I love Miss Congeniality, and you should always remember to sing.
Solar plexus, pin step, nose, point!
One of the pros for boxing is it's so great for stress relief. You're having a bad time at school, you're having a bad time at work, go there and you can just punch and kick the shit out of some bags in like a controlled environment, you know? It's very nice. Now, one of the cons is something just like inevitable that's gonna happen. Like, you will get punched and you will punch someone at some point. Everyone's chill about it. You all know that if you're there, you're at risk of getting punched. You're not going to be punched hard. You're wearing mitts. You're wearing padding. Most of the time, it's just like an accident where someone misses a glove or you hit yourself in the face. You feel a little stupid at the time, but like no harm, no foul. Other than that, like it is very expensive. The gym that I go to is like pretty cheap for a boxing gym, but that's still expensive. But like if you want, you can just go to like, you know, a few classes and then do things on your own, learn the basics and then follow some YouTube videos. But also, once again, this will be your whole personality, so you will be there all the time, so like memberships might pay off. Overall, boxing, solid 10 out of 10. Next up, art and animation. Everyone wants to be good at art. I have never met someone in my entire life who's like, I love not being able to draw. That doesn't happen. Everyone yearns for the good hands. I've been doing like so much more art over the past few months, and it's so much fun. I'm having a great time. You can just chill, listen to some music, pop on the lo-fi beats, and just start drawing some silly little guys. Learning art, especially if you're learning from like a very beginner stage, it does take a lot of time and practice to get like even an inch further, but you will be able to see like visible improvements. And let me tell you, the improvements feel so good. Like once you can start like drawing things on your own, you feel like a god. Also, just like I have so many ideas that I want to make that have just lived in my mind for years. And now I have a means to make them, which is so exciting. Now the only thing that's stopping me is my own procrastination. So they will not be made, but at least I can. Also, another fun thing about art is that you can use yourself as a reference. Reference photos are great. And if you want to take them yourselves, you can just have like a whole slew of silly looking photos on your phone of you doing the weirdest shit and then forgetting about them and then finding them months later. This one's my favorite. The pros for learning to make art is you can make your own fan art and memes. Look, I want to make art just to make fan art. I don't care about creating original pieces or original characters. I just want to make people that already exist, but I want to do it. Also, the potential for memes has increased highly. I'm currently working on an animation that might be the stupidest thing I've ever done. I know I said that about the worm video earlier, but I think this one might take the cake. If you want a little sneak peek of it, there you go. It's very stupid and I love it so much. Now, one of the cons for art is that like inevitably, you will hate the things you make. You will spend a lot of time and effort making something and you'll look at it and just be like, I wish I was dead. I wish I had never made this and I want it to burn in hell forever. But that's part of the process, you know? A lot of it is just your own brain trying to revolt against you. But, you know, the good thing is that like you can learn from it and you can see the progress that you're making. And also like it's kind of funny. I look at all my bad art and I think it's hilarious. Overall, art animation, 9 out of 10. Highly recommend it. Now, my top media obsessions for the year. Every year, I watch a shit ton of TV and just get involved in way too much garbage. Now, this year, I watch a significantly less amount of TV and movies. I think I only watched like 5 shows. But still, I went down a lot of rabbit holes. The entirety of like 2023 for me was just consumed by like the Grishaverse, aka like Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows. And let me tell you, there was a gaping void within my soul when I learned that that show had been canceled. I hate Netflix. How could you do this to us? The fact that we won't get to see Jessie May Lee with white hair haunts me every single day, and I will never forgive Netflix for this. However, I do have some new things that have helped fill that void a little bit. First off, Court of Thorns and Roses. Again, I've talked about this book way too much. It is very fun. I like it. It's very entertaining. The first book's pretty good. The rest of the book's fucking rad. I want you to know I have made an entire review of A Court of Mist and Fury, but I'm not exaggerating when I say I talked for 16 hours and I cannot for the life of me find the will to edit that video down. I do not want to look at myself that much. However, very good book series. Next up, Epic. All of you know I like Epic. Everyone is here because of Epic. If you were here before I talked about Epic the Musical, I am so sorry. You have no fucking idea what's going on. Like, if you're even still here, I appreciate you and I apologize. But anyway, Epic the Musical has completely consumed the last 6 months of my life and I don't regret it at all. I love it. Next up, Hades. I love this game. It costs like $25. Go pick it up. you'll have the best time. You're fighting your way out of hell to screw over your mean dad, and you can razzle-dazzle some hot people along the way. But now I'm like 120 runs in, I think. At the beginning of the year, I was averaging like at least reading 2 books every single month. And then as soon as I started playing Hades, I read 1 book over the course of 3 months, and that was really pushing it because this game took up all my free time. Lastly, Arcane. Now, it's a beautiful show. However, I do hate League of Legends. And I think that's really holding me back from liking Arcane more. If you like League of Legends, that's fine. I'm not trying to put you down, but also seek help. Before I even started watching season 2, I was rewatching season 1, and I pulled up my Pinterest one day, and the entire feed was just photos of Victor, the skinny Czech man, and I thought, you know, maybe this is a problem. Anyway, like 95% of it now still is just a Victor with a little Greek mythology thrown in there. But really, I do like Arcane. Season 2, so good. Very gay, might I add. Now, the year is 2025. Those old hobbies are behind me, and they are dead to me. It's time to move on and create a new personality. I'm not someone who likes New Year's resolutions. However, I do like creating impossible standards that I will inevitably fail to meet and be upset about. So that's what I'm gonna do now. First up this year, I do want to keep doing art and animatics. I wanna get better at them because like I truly am a beginner. The stuff I make is not good. I have fun doing it, but I think it could be a lot better. Also on that note, I wanna learn digital art. I feel like my abilities in like traditional media are okay. Digital art is a whole nother landscape. It's like the difference between walking and ice skating. As soon as I try to draw anything with digital art, it just looks like trash. So I wanna get better at that. I wanna learn how to like color and render things better. Next up, stained glass. I do have a whole Pinterest board filled of things to make that are way out of my skill set. However, that has never stopped me before. So I will be making some stained glass stuff in the future. Next up, I would love to learn how to play I Can't Help But Wonder on the guitar. Do I know how to play the guitar? Thank you for asking. No, I do not. I do not know anything about music. I did learn a little bit of the Last of Us theme song on guitar. However, I am gonna learn how to play that song. And I'm also gonna finish learning how to play the Last of Us theme song because I only have the main chord down and it's killing me. Next up, more reading. I actually want to read the books that people recommend to me. All of you have been wonderful and have recommended me a lot of great books, and I have not read a single one of them. My friends keep on recommending me books, and I ignore them. All right, this is the same thing that happened with Princess Poison Vow. They're so good, and I want to get to them. I also need to stop buying books. I went into the bookstore the other day, and I did not buy a single thing. I bought something, but it wasn't for me. Okay, that doesn't count. I want to get to the books that have been recommended to me so I can at least get back to people and say that I have read their recommendations. Now, lastly, I want to learn how to do a backflip. Everyone wants to learn how to do a backflip, and I want to be able to do one. I want to be the annoying person who knows how to do a backflip and can just fucking like, go for it, you know? Now, if for some reason I just stopped posting videos, please know that I was trying to do a backflip and snapped my neck and died. It's nothing personal, but it's probably gonna happen. Anyway, that's gonna be up there. Other than that, I really don't have a way to end this video. So Happy New Year. Peace out. Nailed it!